So I'm planning to play with Phil one of the practice round days. So
Don't lose all
that'll
your
be fun.
money. Don't lose all your money.
We played once in the off season.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. This is the kickoff to Masters Week. 10 days of coverage for the year's first major from Augusta National. You good people out there, you better sub to Mayo Media Network because then you'll get all the Masters coverage that you want. All the previews, all the post-round stuff that you need, the in-play action. We'll have the Cut Sweat live. So you smash the like to the episode and you give me your winner down in the comment section. That would be a thrill for me. Another thrill, Michael Kim is on the line with me. Number 50 in the world rankings. How stressed out were you at the course once you got off?
Yeah, it was interesting. Leading up to the week, I'd been kind of telling myself like, hey, like I've had a great start. If I don't play in this rendition of the Masters, I can play, in the future, and just trying to kind of make the moment seem less important as I could. But then, it must be like deeply rooted in my brain how big the Masters is. And after I made the birdie on 10 and then on 13, my heart started really ramping up because at that point, I probably felt like I just needed some pars. Then, made a couple of bad bogeys coming in and then kind of watching Ben Griffin make some birdies coming in, and he played great. And then just really refreshing the PGA Tour app and Twitter for the Nosferatu guy, the OWGR guru. So yeah, it was a bit of a hectic lunch after the round, but I'm glad it worked the way it did.
Did you ever consider going back out onto the course? Because Griffin was finishing up on the front, like go and follow that group for the final 3 holes.
No. I definitely did not think about it. I was gonna let him, do his best and see where the points stack up at the end.
I'm going to need to send you the Fantasy National app. It updates in real time for you, so you don't have to wait and like sit there with the weird PGA Tour app. So you'd be fine on that. You would have known he missed that 5-footer on 8, which was really the hinge putt of the entire tournament for you.
Yeah. He stuck it on 8, and I was like, oh man, that's an easy birdie. And then he ended up missing it. And then I of course saw him stick it on 9 too, and I was like, oh, there's no way he misses 2. And he obviously made that one on 9, and was kind of wondering, like, man, that might be it. He might have just clinched his ticket to the Masters. So, the margins were incredibly small. I also have to thank Neil Shipley. He made bogey on 18 at Valspar to help me make the cut, and I had a nice weekend to get some points. So. Just crazy thin margins sometimes in pro golf.
Yeah, you keep grinding it out and it ends up working. Like this year has been, you're ascending. You're up to number 50 in the world. Like, how gassed have you been after playing 8 weeks in a row?
Man, I felt pretty gassed after the Vedanta tournament, and that was I went Mexico, Genesis. No, I'm at Phoenix, Genesis, Mexico. I felt pretty gassed, and then I kept playing and playing. Maybe the player's miscut was kind of a nice little break, just to kind of get my body back a little bit, a couple more days rest, and got ready for the next 2 weeks. But I was really tired. Just trying, I didn't do like a whole lot of prep work heading into the last 2 or 3 weeks, just trying to get as much energy as I could back. And I had seen those courses many times, so it wasn't as big of a deal. But I'm happy to get a week off and head over to the Masters on Sunday.
So being the last guy in, how does lodging work for the Masters now? Did they hook that all up for you, or do you have to scramble to go find a place to stay?
They help out. I mean, there's definitely people helping me out, finding homes to rent for the week. Tickets is also another like thing. I have to kind of figure out who to give, who not to give, um, stuff like that. But and so far, it hasn't been too hectic. My manager's helping me out a ton.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes. Like when I'm trying to book a live show right now, I was like, do I really need to do the logistics on this, or can my agent kind of figure most of this out for me? I guess that's why we pay these guys, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly. And my manager's the best. She's helping me out as much as she can.
So what has changed this year? You have the. I saw you going over the new angle of attack around the greens, and now all of a sudden you're a top five player in the world around the greens.
Yeah, that was a big part. I would say, full swing wise, it has just been a continuation of the things that I was doing in the fall late last year. Um, I had a nice fall starting at Vegas last year, and we just kind of went on, kept going that direction. Um, really, it was just a bit of a ball position adjustment with the full swing, and then Joe Mayo helped a ton with the short game when I took a lesson with him at Phoenix, and so it's been kind of a long continual build, I would say, to this point, and it's not been like just one thing. Which I think is a good thing. The longer builds tend to last longer, I would say.
So did you when you started mapping out your schedule, and obviously you, because of Phoenix, you get into Genesis because of Genesis, and Honda you get into, and Mexico you get into API, you get into the players. So obviously you're going to pick up these signature events with the huge paydays in them. Was it the push to make the Masters why you continued to play at Valspar and Houston, and why you were in the field for Valero until you weren't?
Yeah, definitely. I was actually planning on skipping after I missed the cut. I was so tired. I told my caddy on Friday, I was like, "Yeah, I'm done until Houston. I'm at least taking next week off. I'm just so tired." But then I kind of sat around Saturday morning before I finally made the decision, and I actually DM'd the Nosferatu person, just to see like, hey, how many points do I need to probably make it to the Masters? And he kind of gave me a decent guideline. And I was like, I might not make it even if I do play these next two events, but I wanted to give myself the opportunity, because it's obviously the Masters. So I'm glad I did, but definitely pretty tired after it all.
Well, what does the rest of your season look like now? Because you're so high up in the Aon Next 10 that you're pretty much in almost all of the signature events. Like, you'll probably have to play Heritage the week after the Masters now, right?
Yeah, I've got a busy schedule after this week off. I've got the Masters, the RBC. Not 100% sure on the Zurich. Not
By
100% sure on CJ.
well,
But
CJ is local for you though. Like, you could, like, Craig Ranch. How far do you live from Craig Ranch?
I live 15 minutes. And before I joined a new golf club here in Dallas, that was the place I practiced the most at, which hasn't led to any success in years past. But it always feels like it'd feel really weird to me if I skip the CJ Cup, which is literally in my backyard, and so I'd probably play that one.
Quail
I
Hollow,
think
the old Quail Hollow, the truest, the signature events the next week,
truest.
and then the PGA
Yeah, and then the
Championship.
PGA I'm in also, and obviously you're not skipping those. So I'm playing a little bit by ear and just kind of going with how my body feels and how my game feels. But if all things go well, I'm gonna try to play as much as I can. I'm used to playing a pretty big schedule, not as much as this, but it's certainly worse places to be at.
Oh, well, if you end up qualifying for the Open, do you think you'll go over to Scotland and play in that tournament the week before, or just take a rest week?
No, I love links golf. I obviously I'll play the John Deere. Um, I'll play. I'll probably play the Scottish. If I'm not in the Open, I might just take 2 weeks off. But if I am in the British, I'd certainly play the Scottish and the Open Championship for sure.
I mean, if you end up in the U.S. Open, we'd love to see you up here in Canada for the other RBC, but I can see why you might want to take a pass on that.
Yeah, Canadian Open has been one of my favorite tournaments to go to. It's not as hot usually; it's a little bit cooler during the summer. The people get behind it, obviously, a ton. The golf courses are pretty unique, and I played well. I'm sure it's going to be at a different golf course, but I played well last year there. If I don't play that one, I'll be pretty disappointed. But you gotta pick and choose here a little bit at that point.
Well, you're now at the point where you can pick and choose. You're 12th in the FedEx Cup. You have enough points based on the last 5 years to at least be in the top 70 by the end of the year, even if you never played again. So that's got to be at least a relief, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic! I had not done. I know I've racked up a lot of points, but I also don't want to get too complacent, right? Like, East Lake is on every tour player's mind. I almost feel like, to get to East Lake is such a big accomplishment amongst the PGA Tour guys, and maybe even more so, or as much so as a win would be. East Lake is a big deal. I've never played East Lake, so I don't want to get too complacent. So I haven't really like taken a whole look at like what would get me to 70 or what would get me to 50. But it's nice to know that I at least have 70 in the bank.
Yeah, it says I think last year it was 856 and you're at 870 already. So, assuming that you make a cut for the rest of the season and you're already qualified for a bunch of tournaments which don't have a cut, which are automatic points, I think you're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I've had been looking forward to playing some signature event, like no cut signature events, but the first two were all with cut ones because there were Tigers and Arnold Palmer. So I'm looking forward to one at RBC with no cut and just play as well as I can there.
Were you stunned at how well you played at API at Bay Hill?
Stunned. I don't know about stunned. I like that golf course. I have played well or decent there in years past. And I've been obviously been playing well, so I wasn't stunned. But it's definitely nice to know like those are the best fields in golf now, other than the majors, right? So if I felt, it's a nice boost when you finished. I finished fourth there, I think, right?
Yeah.
Finishing fourth there, like if I can finish fourth at Arnold Palmer, like I feel like that means I'm good enough to contend even at the Masters or any of the other big majors or big tournaments.
Well, it's funny. It seems counterintuitive. Like when you take a look at your driving distance, your ball speed versus some of the very top guys, that you would think that Sawgrass, and I mean, you've played really well at Cognizant at PGA National, and even Valspar, those would be great courses for you just as an equalizer on the field. Like, Minwoo's out there driving at 350 to God knows where, and it's going to be fine unless it's in the middle of a lake. But you've really dominated. You've done really, really well at these really long courses. I think that sets up really well for the Masters and Jack's course or the PGA Championship. That's got to be somewhat encouraging.
Yeah, I think I've done well in years past where I don't have to drive it just dead straight to a tee. And the thing I like about Bay Hill is a lot of the troubles on the left. If you think of even like one or three, or six or like 11, a lot of those tougher tee shots with trouble on the left. I feel much comfortable in that with my draw, and that's probably one of the reasons why I felt pretty comfortable at Arnold Palmer. And my iron game has always been maybe not always, but in the last few years have been one of my strong suits, especially my kind of mid to long iron. So if I can, if it's a course that those factors are more valuable, then I feel like I have a really good shot at it. Which I think technically Augusta somewhat fits that build. So hopefully I have a good week next week.
Well, you do come in fifth in the Masters field currently in approach play for the 2025 season. So I think that's a good boost.
That is, everyone says it's a second shot golf course, right? So, look, when I played there first, I knew like I wasn't going to play well, like to be completely honest. Like it would have, I was basically throwing up a Hail Mary, for that week. And, this time around, it feels a bit more manageable, like maybe like a 3rd and 3 instead of like a 3rd and 30 and you need a touchdown from the 50-yard line. I feel more comfortable heading into the week than in 2019.
Like when you first got there in 2019, because after you won at John Deere, it's not like you went on and won a couple more tournaments. Like that was sort of the beginning of a slide and a downturn. So by the time you got to Augusta, was it just, hey, I'm at Augusta, let me take this in?
Yeah, you know, I think I had so much anxiety and stress about my game, and it's my first Masters. Like I want to do well, obviously. I didn't have the presence to kind of take it in as much. I wanted to do well. I knew my game wasn't great. Just hoping for maybe some type of spark for the week was really all I could think about. Worried about that first tee shot, and just those, the leaders when because they're playing well, and certain shots you can really get close. Obviously, as everyone knows, like if you're playing well, there's obviously birdies to be had, but if you're not playing well, it's like such a difficult golf course. Because you just getting up and down is so hard around there sometimes if you're in the wrong spots. So it was pretty, honestly, it was a pretty brutal Thursday, Friday for me.
Do you think that since you've had your experience there already, like just understanding the green speeds, knowing where not to miss, and just having figured out the green complexes a little bit, having some experience? I mean, I guess there's a reason that no first timer has won there since 1981. Although Ludwig gave it a pretty good run last year. Do you think that experience from last time is actually going to really help you this time around and be like, all right, I'm here now. I'm in the top 50. I'm playing great. I'm hitting a draw, which you need to play around here. The long irons are good. That if you can figure out the green complexes, that you can have some sort of confidence that you can build on. Like if you can go out and shoot, let's say 68 in the first round, even 69, just break 70, you'll be inside like the top 10. Like that should give you some good momentum, I think.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, like I think course knowledge it's obviously important, but I don't know if it's like, I think the most important part and one of the biggest reasons why a first timer has never won isn't necessarily all about course knowledge. It's more about like it's the Masters. Every kid has dreamed of playing and winning the Masters, and it's really hard to get over that oh my gosh, like this is something that I've dreamed about since I was a kid. Like just getting over that big feel of whatever that is, just that awe-struck moment. I think that's such a massive guys have to we know that like we know where to miss it on certain shots. The pins are mostly the same. Everyone kind of knows exactly where to miss it, but at times you're just kind of awestruck from just playing the place. That's the most difficult part, and hopefully I can get over this next week.
Do you hit up the merch tent when you go there?
I personally didn't as much. I just did some shopping in the pro shop, but this year I will for sure personally go into the merch tent and buy a bunch of stuff and probably get there early so I beat some of the rush.
One of the things that I heard just over the course of the past 8 weeks, just kind of catch up with what's been going on. How bad was the hospitality and food at Valspar before the past few years? Because I've heard like 20 people talk about it.
Um, it's look, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best of the year. And it took Keith Mitchell's brave comments at a different spot for them to, pay more attention to it. Which, to their credit, at least they made big strides from going from one of the worst to at least average now. And so I do think they deserve credit for that, not just bad criticism over the years. It was, you know, it showed how great of a golf course it was when some of the other parts of the tournament weren't as great. They always still got a really good feel because that Innisbrook golf course is such a good test.
If Florida was allowed to hold U.S. Opens, which I think it gets too hot in the middle of July or middle of June, so that's not going to happen. Would Copperhead, if you grew out the rough like another inch and a half, could it be a U.S. Open venue?
Um, I mean, the rough is decently long for the tournament. The only thing I would, the green complexes are generally pretty bland. Once you get on the green, there's not like a ton you have to worry about. They make up for that with pretty small, shallow, different angled complexes. But I would think that getting the firmness up of the greens or making the green complexes a bit more varied, maybe add some tiers or something like that would definitely make it very US Open viable for sure in a hurry.
You mentioned you played in Vegas. I was talking to Mark Hubbard's brother yesterday. I did a show with him, Nate, and he said that Mark was playing with Toasty in Vegas, and he had never like followed around Toasty before. And obviously, Toasty's a big thing after Houston. We are Team Toasty on the Pat Mayo experience. He's just electric every time he's on the screen. No idea what he's going to do. But Nate told me that he hit a shot so badly at Summerlin that he ended up punching himself in the face after the shot. And he basically had a shiner on his face for the rest of the tournament. Have you ever played with Toasty?
I played with Toasty at Bermuda last year. I feel like every content creator loves Toasty because he is a content machine out there, which PGA Tour players aren't necessarily that. I played with him in Bermuda. I was hoping for some more like interesting stories, but he was pretty calm for the most part, even though he wasn't playing great. Bermuda, because it's so late in the schedule, the pressure really ramps up if you're not inside the 125. And us players, if we're inside the 125, playing with another guy outside, it's it's almost like we definitely want to make sure we're out of the guy's way. Like we don't want to do anything to mess like another guy's routine, even more so during those weeks. But he was unusually stoic during the Bermuda tournament.
And he didn't have to go to the bathroom midway through a hole either, so that probably helped.
Yeah, he didn't slow play me or whatever was going on during that week.
So I want to comp some courses together and get your insight on this because there's certain guys that have now shown a track record of popping up at similar courses, and you just played two. Actually, you played three of them that I'm kind of lumping all together. It's almost like the Toasty courses. That's why I brought them up. How similar, at least off the tee, are Mexico and Houston in terms of like where you can miss? Can you just miss anywhere there?
Mexico is interesting. I would say 10, like the tee shot on 10 is really tough. There's basically water on both sides. It's into the wind. You can lay up short of the water on the right, but then you're basically leaving yourself a three wood into a par four. So it's whichever shot you want to take on. And the first hole tee shot, there's a big water on the right, but you can miss it a mile to the left, I guess. So there's like one and a half really tricky tee shots in Mexico. But other than that, I mean, it is very wide. Houston, to be honest, Houston might be wider in play because other than other than let's see, 16, the par five where Minwoo hit it into the water. There, I mean, because there's no rough, I guess that's the intention is to like make it seem more like the Masters. But um, I think I put it on my post on Twitter like after the tournament, like people were like saying like this is a good golf course for Rory because he can hit driver everywhere. But it's just like, yeah, anyone on the PGA Tour can hit driver on this golf course anywhere. It's so wide. The fairways aren't like crazy wide, but the playable areas with the first cut is very wide. There's not a ton of trouble. There's some pine straw and some trees at worst that you're going to hit into. Um, so yeah, those are some really wide areas off the tee, and you're not too stressed heading into that week off the tee for sure.
Yeah, and the other two that I wanted to put around it, just because I've noticed the same, and maybe it's similar field strength, and that's why it's happening. But well, you're familiar enough with Craig Ranch that Craig Ranch and weirdly Torrey Pines have all those four courses have a weird amount of crossover success amongst the same guys. Is there like does that jibe with you, or is that just a weird outlier?
I think so. I think the Torrey Pines and Craig Ranch, they're all kind of I would say the playable areas are big. There's not a ton of hazards that you're too worried about off the tee. Like Torrey, and especially with Torrey, like I think where some of the bombers help out is when you miss, you actually want to miss bigger at Torrey in certain areas where the spectators kind of stamp down the rough. Torrey gets tricky like 5 yards, 3 yards into the rough, and sometimes if you miss it like 20, 25 yards into the rough, it's actually better because the spectators have matted that rough down, especially on the weekends. Like Rory, he rarely ever misses a driver, but if he misses it because he has big crowds, like it's no secret, like he gets better lies in the rough just because there's more spectators following him. Um, and Craig Ranch, yeah, it's a lot of the same. The fairways are generally really wide out there. Um, but not for me, I guess, because I have struggled there over the last few years for some reason. But yeah, I could see there's being crossover for sure.
Yeah, the other one that I'd throw into it would be Detroit. Just it seems like you can miss the playable area in Detroit is everywhere.
Right, like you can always find your ball in Detroit. There's no hazards. It's an old school tree line golf course, so you definitely want to hit the fairways. But you'll always find it. You'll have most likely you have a shot towards the green, which is all you can kind of ask for. But then, like, I don't know what a really narrow golf course or where it would be like San Antonio this week. Perfect. There's the fairways are generally wide, but once you get away from those general fairway areas, you're in a lot of trouble. Um, with the desert, I mean, there was a 16 um, there, and that's not because the green. I mean, although the greens are pretty crazy there, but just you can get into a lot of trouble off the tee at San Antonio.
Well, maybe that I was trying to figure out what the link was between Sawgrass and San Antonio. Now, there may not be a link, but just looking at this year's players' final leaderboard, it's just guys who dominate in San Antonio. Like Spawn was there, he won. Connors was top six, he's won twice. Akshay won last year, he was third. Rory's played it 4 times, coming second and coming third. Hoagie is top 15 in the only start he's made there in 5 years. Glover's been 4 of 25 or 4 of his last 5 top 25s. Is the driving similar between those two places? Because obviously, if you miss at Sawgrass, you're in the water.
Yeah, all those guys you mentioned, like to me, I rarely see them miss it really wide. They all, if they miss it, I'm sure there's like a stat like distance from center of fairway. Like all those guys are really good, I would say, ball strikers where not just off the tee, but second shot as well, where their misses are very minimal. They might not hit as many like amazing golf shots to or really far, um, or to like have tap ins all the time, but they're always within like a pretty small range. And I think it tends to get windy at Sawgrass at times, and also San Antonio for sure. So I would say those are probably the two biggest correlators, at least in my mind.
I saw you tweeting about some of the young players and just how good they are so often. They haven't hit the skids in their career yet and have to come back from that. I've actually seen a lot of veteran players, I mean, guys even way older than you, talking about it at this point, where you kind of have to go through that if you want to get back up to the next level. Like even someone like Spieth. I mean, you start off so well, you go down, then you have to build yourself back up. But you mentioned distance from the center of the fairway. Berger's the best on tour. Number 2 and 3 are Clanton and Thorbjornsen. Have you played with those guys?
Yeah, that's very unfair that those guys are so because they bomb it too. I actually played with both of them on Saturday of RSM last year. I was paired with Luke Clanton and Michael Thorbjornsen. Um, and honestly, like I've always I started out on tour pretty young. I got my card in 2016. So I was like 22, 23 at that point. Um, and I was always one of the younger guys. And now when I played with them last year, it was like, oh my gosh, these are like babies. And I felt way more comfortable the next day playing with Stuart Sink, who's like an all-time veteran. So I was like, wow, I must be much closer to the veteran side than the younger kids side. But it almost felt like I was like trying to babysit for them. Not that they needed any babysitting during a tournament, but it kind of felt that way.
Yeah, well, I think I think it was either one of them went on a run and almost won the tournament. I think it was Clanton.
Yeah, Clanton played really well. I believe he made bogey on 18, and Maverick stuffed one on 18 to make birdie to win outright by one, I think is what happened.
Well, Maverick got a taste of his own medicine at the Genesis when Ludwig did the same thing to him.
Yeah, I mean, they're both obviously really good. Maverick, that final round shot something really deep, and as I'm watching the leaderboard as I'm playing it, I'm like, Maverick was only like one or two groups behind me, so we were fairly close, but I think he shot like 65, 64, which as he's moving up more up on that leaderboard, you're just kind of like, wow, like where is he finding all these birdies? Like I'm just trying to find pars here. It was pretty crazy.
Do you know where you rank on tour from distance of center of the fairway?
Probably not that high, to be honest with you. I've got to imagine I'm. My best guess would be 98th.
11th.
Oh, wow! I'm surprised myself.
Outdoor golf season is almost here, but is your swing ready? With 126 X Golf locations across 38 states, it's never been easier to dial in your swing year-round. I can speak to this. Going to the simulators all winter long, especially the good ones. You can go to crappy simulators. You don't want to go there. You want to go to X Golf and really prep your game and hit the season firing. X Golf's state-of-the-art simulators let you play full rounds, tee to green with unmatched short game realism. X Golf's auto tee system ensures you're always ready to bomb a drive. No delays or automatic two putts, just real competitive golf in a lively sports bar environment. Love a little competition? X Golf's handicap leagues and tournaments give every golfer a shot at winning incredible prizes. Upcoming spring tournaments include the Majors, where you could win a beach or mountain vacation, or the Cinco de Mayo Scramble, win a trip to New Belgium Brewery in Asheville, and that is just the start. So visit playxgolf.com to find your nearest X Golf and book your tee time today. Again, trust me on this, you're going to want to go to X Golf. So visit playxgolf.com. Now that the weather's heating up for almost everyone, you need to flip your wardrobe. And if you're anything like me, summertime means more outfit changes. Golf, work, gym, playground with the kids, restaurants, whatever it is that you do, it probably requires a change of clothing. What you need are shorts and pants that look the part for all those places that are actually comfortable. And that's a hard thing to do. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's tried wearing a pair of regular golf shorts to dinner after playing earlier that day, only to have your wife tell you that you need to go change because now you're dressed like that creepy guy at the office who wears a golf shirt and golf shorts to work every single day, and it's just a real bad vibe. But here's the thing. Since I've started wearing bird dogs, hasn't said a word. They look the part for the course and everywhere else. Plus, unlike my dressier shorts, bird dogs are actually comfortable. They look the same, but they're not just chafing the inside of my thighs the entire time. I basically wear them everywhere now. And when I was at Pinehurst, a place that's really not known for the casual look, I was able to wear my bird dogs while I was playing, and then I wore the exact same shorts to the dress code steakhouse later that night. Everyone was uncomfortable as they were filling their guts with food. Not Pat Mayo, because I have my bird dogs. No issues whatsoever. And for a limited time, my listeners get a free hat with any order when you use code PATMAYO at birddogs.com. Get this hat completely free when you use code PATMAYO at birddogs.com. Show support for the Pat Mayo experience and let them know that I sent you. I want to mention to everyone watching right now, hit the description. You will find a link to, I'm doing a live show during the Canadian Open in Toronto on the Saturday. I have a $5,000 giveaway if you want to get into that contest, and I'm giving away $1,000 in cash as well for the Masters. Hit the description right now. The link is there. See if you're eligible to play in it. Only Canadians outside of Ontario can win the giveaway. The money, the cash money, that's available to everyone worldwide. So you can get into it and find out how you want to do that down there. I wanted to ask you about Masters prep. Like, what are you doing this week? Like, do you have like a whole guide? Are you looking, because you mentioned that you didn't really know where you needed necessarily to miss the first time around. And now that you have a legit chance here to do something special at Augusta, that I assume it's like cram time to figure all the stuff out.
Yeah, I have a stats guy. I'm having him kind of send me his breakdown of his golf course. What he usually sends me, like what shots I need to work on, what numbers I need to work on. I texted Charlie Hoffman, who I felt like he has had, a decent amount of success there. Felt like he's like leading Thursday or Friday almost there
every year,
very often there. Yeah. And so I kind of asked him like what he thought was important. Kind of mentioned some stuff, kind of short game or just like lag putting and stuff like that. I was talking to my buddy Michael Weaver, who played the Masters as an AM. Just kind of just picking people's brain here and there. Some of my closer friends, just to get an idea of what I want to work on. But I think for me, just certain tee shots come to mind, like 18, what I'm going to do there, because I tend to, when I get nervous, my little draw turns into a bigger draw, and you can't really start it too far offline there. So just trying to figure out some stuff there. Wanted to find some uneven lies on the golf course today to kind of simulate that a little bit. But it's at the end of the day, I think it's a lot about your mid to long irons there, and just trying to just make sure those are sharp. I felt I gained a lot of strokes approach last week. So just I have a week off, but I definitely don't want to. I definitely want to keep things sharp. Obviously for next week.
When I'm thinking about the different undulations, especially on the fairway where you're never going to have an even lie, and I take a look at Masters winners and guys that have performed well at the Masters, and not necessarily like the Schefflers and the Rahms, the guys that really bomb it out there, but guys who are average distance but good at the rest of their game, like Spieth, obviously he's won, Zach Johnson has won, Steve Stricker has been excellent, Matt Kuchar has been excellent at the Masters over the years, those types of players. Three of those guys have been pretty good at the John Deere Classic over time too. Are there any flat lies at TPC Deer Run?
There's plenty of.
I'm just wondering it is with those guys. They win the Masters and they win that. I mean, obviously you've won it too. So here we go.
I think maybe Deer Run. It's not the most um, difficult golf course off the tee. I would say there's decent amount of areas. I think it's just the guys that are good with their wedges. I think do well at Deer Run, chipping and putting, and obviously that translates well to most any spots. But at Augusta, chipping is really difficult, mainly because of the big slopes. And you can't, I was talking, Charlie mentioned this too, where you can't really bump stuff into the rough because everything's mowed towards you. So the ball just sticks once it hits that first cut. And it's hard to bump it. So that's an additional challenge that I would say, not a lot of guys can succeed unless like I do remember like Charles Schwartzel when the year he won, he hit like the sickest chip on one with like a 6 or 7 iron. I don't remember exactly from where to where, but so you have to get a little bit more creative around the greens there. I think.
I can see that. And then you see a lot of the, like, if you think like short game specialists over the years, no matter how old they get, they retain the hands and they're still able to do it. Like, Phil is probably going to do well at the Masters again. I'm not saying Phil's going to win, but there's a reason he just continues to stick around every year. Patrick Reed has actually been, I don't know, like, he can't win on Live, he can't win on the Asian Tour, but you put him back at the Masters and all of a sudden he's just sticking everything to 2 feet from off the green again. Is that, when I talk about course knowledge, are those the sorts of things that really translate through, like knowing how to play from around the greens more so than knowing what iron shots to hit or how to shape your shot off the tee?
I would say I think the biggest part of course knowledge at Augusta, it's like at certain pins, if you're out of position, you really need to be careful of where you're going to miss it. It's not just like one spot good for all pins. It's like if you miss it, if the pin's left, like are you actually going to be even more left of the pin, or are you going to be way right of the pin? Stuff like that, like 17, that back left corner. Back pins, you generally want to give yourself room short, but that back left pin, because the green works away from the fairway, the miss is actually, past the pin. A little long is totally fine there. So stuff like that where you really, really have to not only know where to miss it, but just commit to missing it there and be okay with it being an uncomfortable spot or where it's kind of unorthodox feel of, just being super aggressive to that weird spot or stuff like that. But I think, and if you have a short game like Patrick Reed, that guy is filthy, filthy with the wedge. So that certainly helps as well.
What are, like, so you're playing the draw. Obviously, that's always been known as the preferred shot off the tee at Augusta. Although DJ ended up winning, Rahm ended up winning. Those guys are very good. Has that changed over the course of the past, like since the last time you played to now? I know some trees fell down. Maybe the course is a little bit different where they extended it. But do you still think the draw is generally the preferred play off the tee?
I think ever since they like quote unquote tiger proofed it or basically just lengthened the golf course, like I don't think it's not as nearly as big of a deal as it used to be. Like 13, I think you can get away with hitting a pretty straight shot all the time there. Like 2, you can basically get away with a pretty straight shot. The draw is a bit overblown in my opinion. Like you said, like Nicholas, Tiger, Rom, DJ, like all those guys mainly hit cuts for the most part, and they're totally fine. I think your mid to long iron game has to be just spectacular for you to win out there. That which is, I think, the more important thing as opposed to being able to just curve it one direction, one way.
Thinking about going to the course, and obviously you're going to get your practice rounds in, what do you think are the most difficult tee shots at that course?
One is hard without the fact that it's the first tee shot of the Masters at Augusta National. Um, I would say 7 is actually pretty tricky. The fairway slope's pretty good left to right. And if you miss it on the right side, it generally will roll into kind of that first cut, and then you have to hit somewhat of a pretty big cut around the trees to get to the green, which with like a 8 iron or 7 iron, which might not be as easy. Um, I would say obviously 13 is pretty tricky just because like you have all the world to the right, but if you want to make birdie, you kind of have to take on the creek a little bit. Um, Other than that, it's not 18 for sure. Um, if you pull it a little too much, you push it a little too much, and it catches one of those tree limbs, like you're looking at double pretty quickly. Um, I would say those are probably the toughest tee shots.
And what do you think is the toughest? I mean, it could even be a par three, but when you're sitting there with a long iron in your hand, what's the most? You just look at it and be like, I don't know where this is going to land. Like, how do I even get this close?
Like 11 comes to mind a ton.
Oh yeah,
Mainly is not just like the actually to me the almost the easier pins are the ones tucked on the left because you miss it right, you have some room to get up and down. The one like there's like I think there's like a front right one where it plays shorter, but there's those big mounds on the front right of the green there where like if you have it curving right to left and you land it right of the pin, right of the green, but it creams off that mound, like it definitely goes into the water. So now you're like, all right, like where am I going to miss this? And then 15, like especially that left side. I know TV, the leaders always hit that green too, it seems like. But like that green looks tiny from the fairway, and you're just like, please just land somewhere in grass and stay there, please.
yeah, that would work out. I'm thinking about the par threes. Is the short par three the hardest one?
12. I don't. I mean, 12. I know obviously it gets a lot of news or highlight. It gets highlighted often just because everyone's seen it go into the water a ton. 12, I think it's just you just kind of have to get a little lucky with the wind. But as long as you hit it, within those two bunkers, it's okay. Obviously, um, 7 or was it 6? 6 can get pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Oh,
Number four is
four is a
tough.
monster.
Yeah.
Four is a monster. But yeah, four is a monster. It's like 230, 240, sometimes into the wind. It's shallow. You can't read that bunker on each side. It's not the easiest up and down. They put it on that back tier. It's like 4 steps long, and you're just trying to hit the green, and if the wind swirls wrong, and you go way long or way short, you're screwed. So four is a beast for
What
sure.
if it's into the wind and it's 240? What are you hitting off the tee?
I think most tournaments, if it's into the wind, they'll probably move it up. So yeah, at least not hitting 7 wood or 5 wood or 3 wood. Um, if it's 240 into the wind, I mean, if it's like really hard, I'd probably, my 3 wood goes lands about 265. So I'd probably hit that one. But then you're legitimately just like playing for like 3.5 at that point, where you're just trying to get out there with par or bogey and move on to the next hole because it's so hard.
Yeah, over the past 5 years, it's the third hardest hole on the course, 3.26. So playing for 3.5 probably isn't the end of the world. Just take your medicine there, move on, don't make the big number. I think that 12 gets all the pub because that's where the big numbers come into play.
Correct, correct. It's like you hit into the water, then you're dropping it like, back somewhere like, 80 yards or whatever. And you're just kind of in shock almost. You're like, wow, I hit it in the water with a 9 iron or whatever. And that wedge shot isn't easy. Next one, because you're like, oh, what's the wind doing now? Or, where am I going to land this? And so, it's that's definitely where obviously doubles and triples get made.
Are you going to try at the par three?
I'm not like, am I going to try and win to break that so-called I don't know, what do you want to call it? The superstition or the curse or um I'm not overly superstitious, but if I'm like 8 under through 8, I might not finish. I might have my caddy, whoever that may be, hit the putt on 9 for me. But I don't know. Well, I hope we'll play it by ear on that one.
No, if you get out there, maybe you can tweet it out. You can give a ticket to a fan. They can come hit the shot for you. It'll be the greatest moment of their life, and then you don't have to deal with that stress of being the guy that won the par three.
Perfect, perfect. If yeah, but if I give away a ticket on Twitter and or a spectator hits a putt that I had to hit, I might not be invited back next year.
That's true. I'm doing a thing with a couple guys who were on site this week, and they were like, "Here's the thing. Like, here's how you need to. You can't have your set as you normally do. You have to do it this way." I was like, "Oh my god, they're never gonna let me in there if I ever get a media pass one day."
There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules.
Is that fun though?
And
Like, is it fun because it's just this one thing?
it's I would say I would assume that it gets better as the years go on. You know, they don't it's not like they list out all the rules. They kind of, if you make a mistake, they kind of tell you like, hey, like you can't do this, and I'd be like, oh, sorry. So that, as I'm sure as years pass, you kind of figure out what you can and what you can't do. Um, but that's definitely on your mind as when you're on property.
Is the hospitality better than the Valspar?
Yes, I can confirm the hospitality is much better. Most of the food is you just kind of order what you want and they kind of make it for you. Um, which honest, and I actually haven't had any of the sandwiches like from the stands. I didn't have it any last year or last time around, so looking forward to definitely trying some and see what the hype about the pimento cheese is all about.
Yeah, do it in the practice round. You don't want to be ducking out after hole two, being like, "Yeah, give me a pimento cheese sandwich." Then you're walking uphill for like 3 miles or something like that. It'd be bad for the gut, I think.
For sure, for sure, it's gonna be a early in the week trial for those sandwiches.
One of the big things that comes up with us betting, playing daily fantasy, following the tournament, trying to predict this, it's funny, I keep going back to the Valspar, was the weather draw. How much do the guys actually talk about it? Because I saw you mention it. Like, is this something that's talked about? Like, oh, we got fucked. We're in the PM wave. And then it just turns out to be fine.
Oh yeah, Keith Mitchell and I were eating lunch on Tuesday, and we're in the tea times usually come out around noon, but it was like one. It was past 1 o'clock, and we're kind of like, when are the tea times going to come out? And we all see the weather leading up, and this early. I forget which wave was preferable, but let's just say we want the early late. We want the early late, and we finally get to tea time. Keith Mitchell and I did a big high five because we got the wave that we supposedly wanted. And then after Friday, you realize it was actually completely meaningless, and it was actually the late early that was the better one. So after that, I completely decided I'm not going to waste any more mental energy on hoping I get some correct wave, since I have zero control over it, and it might play the complete opposite.
Just trying to think. It just so obviously you're going to be doing a ton of prep, but does the prep for this change for you at all? Versus, I know you said that you were kind of running on fumes the past few weeks, playing 8 weeks in a row. But let's say you had to play like once every 2 weeks. So going into Phoenix, when you're doing your prep for Phoenix, are you doing more this week, or are you doing exactly what you always do to stay in your routine?
I would say it's a mix of both. I'm not doing just because I'm playing the Masters. I'm not doing like a ton more. I would just say I'm trying to be a bit more specific, kind of pay attention to what shots I might need on the golf course. Like I said, thinking about that tee shot on 18 or tee shot on 1 or 10, stuff like that. And I guess that's kind of what I do. Before regular tournaments too. Like for the waste management, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do on 11 because that's a pretty tee shot. What I wanted to do on 13 and 15 and 17. So it's not a ton more different than my normal practice routine, I would say.
Uh, this is a question from I sent it out to the audience because they wanted to ask a few questions before we let you out of here. What has the past 6 years since your last Masters appearance taught you about pro golf, and how are you going to handle it differently this time around? I know we touched on that a little bit, but you know, coming in this time around, feeling like, I mean, would you say this is the best you've ever played as a pro right now, these past 3 months?
Yeah, it's if we're talking like long stretches, I definitely think this is the best I've played over the last 6 years. I would just say I'd have a better process mentally. Obviously, my swing I feel like is better in a better spot. But if I am in a high stressful environment, like I'm sure Augusta, the Masters, whether I'm playing well or bad, will be pretty stressful. Like, I feel like I have a decent process of trying to manage those thoughts and those feelings way more so than I did back in 2018.
So, someone wanted to know if you had a chip on your shoulder being the last man in at number 50. I would think it would probably be the opposite, that you're probably pretty relieved.
No, no, no. I mean, there are higher ranked guys than me on playing. Um, I mean, there's you know, I'm some like Bernhard Langer is playing this week. There's like there's not like a chip on my shoulder being like the last guy in. No, nothing like that.
The other thing, who would you want to play with? Like if you got to pick, you like to be comfortable out there in order to like feel the most relaxed, play your best of the guys in the field. Like who would you want to be paired up with for the first 2 days?
Huh, great question.
I know
So usually,
Toasty's not there,
so
so you
the
can't pick him.
um, I would say so usually the first time around they pair you up with a past like an older past champ. That's kind of like a tradition they've had. Now it's like my second time around, so I don't know. Who would I be most comfortable with? Um, I would probably say because I have to think who's in the field too. Um, Colin Morikawa is a good friend, so I would want to play with him. Um, who else? I guess that my some of my closest friends in the field would be Colin and Max. So it'd be a nice Cal threesome would be great.
All right. Well, we're going to leave you with one final question. My producer has been wanting to ask you a question. Jared, go ahead.
Hey, man, just curious. When you're driving up there Thursday morning, your headspace, are you kind of like, this is an everyday thing, I belong here? Or do you kind of take a second and you're like, shit, like this is pretty cool, like this is the Masters? Or is it just like every other tournament?
So the holy shit, like I'm sorry if I don't know if I'm
No,
allowed. I
you
think
can
I'm
swear
allowed
as
to
much. You
curse.
can
Yeah,
swear
yeah,
as much
yeah.
as you want.
Okay. The holy shit moment is like the first the first day you're there. Like I'm gonna be there Sunday. And like that first drive through Magnolia Drive or Magnolia Lane is like, oh my gosh, like I'm here. Like this is, what I dreamed of. And honestly, Thursday, I'm just kind of like, holy shit, like I hope my game's good. I hope I hit my first tee shot in the fairway. Those thoughts are kind of going through my mind a little bit more. But like, I even when I was there before, like I really enjoyed. I took like an early scouting couple of days in 2019, like right before Bay Hill, I think last that time around, and going driving then that then it wasn't even the Masters, but I'm just there for a practice round, I guess. But like you're like, oh my gosh, it's definitely like a feeling of like, wow, I did a significant accomplishment in the world of golf playing in this tournament. That's a really cool feeling. Once I get to the golf course and kind of get to my routine, I've noticed that I feel much way calmer. I know what I'm doing. it's usually some of those off moments. Like Wednesday night will probably be a bit more like, I don't want to say freaking out, but like the anxious, that anxiety might be there. Just kind of that nervous energy will be there Wednesday night. And when they say four, please, Michael Kim now driving, I'm sure the heart rate will be ramped back up, but it's totally natural, and kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, what you got to do to calm the nerves on Wednesday night is go find like Max Grazerman, Lori Cantor, Aaron Rye, all the first time guys, and like go psych them out, and it'll make you feel better. It'll get in their heads.
Right, right. Hey, I mean, I know I will not be the most anxious guy on the golf course that this week, because there's plenty of other guys that like first timers, amateurs, like those guys, well, I'm sure will be very nervous. Even a guy like Rory McIlroy, who has a, I don't want to say a ton on it, but I'm sure he has a lot of thoughts going through his mind every Masters week.
And you get to see all the live guys too, all your best friends who left.
Oh, great, great. So I I'm planning to play with Phil one of the practice round days. So
Don't lose all your money.
Fun.
Don't lose all your money.
We played once in the off season. It was very a gentleman tie. We worked it out fine. But I will have cash on me in case something bad happens. But we'll have a good time.
Get out there with either Longer or Freddie Couples if you can too. They can show you the shot on 11 that they do where they hit it like 200 off the tee and then hit this weird worm burner down the hill at the right exact angle that it just rolls onto the green. I don't know how they do it, but it works.
It's incredible that those guys like make cuts still. It's unbelievable. Like Freddie still like might contend this year, and VJ might contend, or like you said, Longer is probably gonna make the cut this year too. So it's pretty insane because that golf course is really long now.
Well,
it's
every time I see a video of VJ, he's still doing speed training at 60.
That guy's a freak. That guy truly. There are guys that play on the PGA Tour that take it more of a job, and they don't, whether they had love for the game or whether kind of the grind kind of took it away. There's a lot of guys that take it as if sees it as more of a 9 to 5 more so than there are guys that truly love the game. Like VJ truly loves the game. Phil still has like that love, that enthusiasm for the game, even on a random like Tuesday in the off season in San Diego. It's really cool to see, actually, I think.
All right. Well, I think I've taken up way too much of your time here. We're so pumped for you. As the Pat Mayo Experience community, we're all just Michael Kim fans now, and we're rooting for you every single week. So have you noticed there's more people, like since you've become more of an online presence, that people just recognize you far more at the course now than they ever used to?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely hear a lot more "Go Mike." I love your Twitter or X or whatnot. And back in the day, I used to be mistaken for other players more so than my own name. So it's been so far it's been overall very positive experience for me.
Well, good luck. We hope to see you at the top of the leaderboard. And if it gets stressful for you on Sunday, that's probably going to be a good thing, right?
It's going to be a great thing. Really looking forward to that.
All right. Obviously, you can follow Mike on X. He has one of the bigger Twitter followings out there amongst the players right now, and he gives away tickets. Probably not to the Masters. He probably doesn't want to lose his invitation. But to most tournaments, he's giving away stuff, encouraging people to come to the course. So make sure to follow him there. Follow me at the PME. If you want to get in that 5K giveaway or the 1K cash giveaway, hit the description, sub to the channel, and I got 9 more days of Masters coverage coming, so subscribe to Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience podcast on audio if you enjoy hearing people talk about golf. And I'm not yelling at Mike, but I'll be yelling at my other guests when they come on if I don't like their takes. But that'll do it for me. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience.
All right, when do you head out?
Sunday.
All right, sweet. It's short
Sunday
flight.
morning.
2-hour flight.
Yeah, like 2 hour, 2.5. Not too bad.
Do you get to fly private into that like Daniel Tower Airport?
No, I'm actually just flying to Atlanta this time around, and just taking a kind of a ride over. But
All right, man. Well,
maybe next time.
yeah. I mean, if you win this one, then you can get the private jet next time.
Next time we'll definitely have a private jet if I win this one.
Experience!